He sat at the wrong table, and everyone laughed. The waiters whispered, the nearby couple snickered, and even the host gave him that pitiful look reserved for people who don't quite belong. His cheap shirt clung to his back, his hands trembled, and the crushed flower in his pocket, a daisy his daughter had insisted he bring, suddenly felt like a symbol of every wrong turn his life had taken. But when the woman next to him looked up from her laptop, smiled softly, and said, "Maybe this is the right table after all," his life, his broken, hopeless life, began to shift in a way he never could have imagined. Sparkling Heart, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected moments, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this one reach hearts that need a reminder that hope still exists. Sparkling Heart. Marcus Avery wasn't supposed to be here. Once upon a time, he was an engineer with a bright future, designing safety systems for city infrastructure. But a single mistake, one miscalculated figure on a project years ago, had cost not only millions of dollars, but also the life of a construction worker. Though the investigation later revealed a company error and not his direct fault, the damage was done. He was fired, blacklisted, and branded as reckless. His marriage collapsed under the pressure, and within months, he went from boardrooms to broom closets. Now, Marcus was a janitor at the same corporate tower where he once pitched his designs. He kept his head down, cleaned up coffee spills, and prayed that his daughter, Lily, would never see the broken man her father had become. That night, he wasn't even sure why he agreed to the blind date. A co-worker had set it up out of pity, saying, "You need to feel like a man again, Marcus." He didn't own a suit anymore, so he ironed his one decent shirt, polished his worn-out shoes, and clutched the daisy his little girl had placed in his hand with a proud smile. "For luck, Daddy," she'd said. He promised he'd try to smile, even though he felt hollow inside. The restaurant was elegant, too elegant. Candlelight shimmered on polished glasses, soft jazz floated through the air, and Marcus could already feel the invisible line dividing those who belonged from those who didn't. The hostess led him toward a corner and said, "Your table is waiting." He nodded, too nervous to confirm the name that he sat down, waiting for the woman described by his coworker, brown hair, red dress, mid-30s. But minutes passed, and she didn't appear. Instead, a woman in her late 30s, wearing a crisp black suit and focused on her laptop, sat at the next table, typing furiously. When Marcus looked around again, a waiter approached and asked, "Sir, are you joining Ms. Alara?" He hesitated. The name didn't ring a bell. But before he could explain, the waiter poured him water and left. And just like that, Marcus was sitting at the wrong table. Moments later, the laughter began. His real blind date, sitting across the room, saw him, waved mockingly, and whispered something to her friends. Marcus's ears burned with humiliation. He stood to leave, stammering apologies, but the woman with the laptop looked up. She studied his face for a long moment before saying gently, "Sit down. You already look like you've had a hard enough day." Her voice wasn't cold or mocking. It was kind, steady. Something about it made him sit back down. Alara Wynn was the CEO of a tech firm known for its ruthless precision. To everyone else in the restaurant, she was power in heels, the kind of woman people moved aside for. But in that quiet moment, with a stranger fumbling at her table, she saw something rare, authentic humility. She watched him tuck the crushed daisy onto the table like it mattered more than all the crystal around them. He apologized profusely, explaining that he was on a blind date and must have mixed up the tables. She smiled faintly and said, "Then maybe this is the right table after all." That sentence, so simple yet profound, shifted something inside him. He told her about the mistake, the scandal, and how he'd lost everything. Most people tuned out when he mentioned being a janitor, but she didn't. She listened. She asked questions. She even laughed softly when he described his daughter's attempts to help him mop floors on weekends. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The woman who had mocked him earlier left with her friends, but Marcus didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt seen. Days later, Marcus received an email from Alara. She thanked him for the conversation and asked if he could meet again, this time at her office. His heart raced. He wasn't sure what she wanted, but curiosity pushed him forward. When he arrived, she greeted him not as a CEO, but as an equal. She told him her company was struggling with a safety issue in their upcoming project, a problem eerily similar to the one that had destroyed his career. "I think you can help," she said. Marcus blinked, unsure whether to laugh or cry. He hesitated, warning her that hiring him could tarnish her reputation. She simply replied, "Integrity is more important than image. I'd rather work with someone who's fallen and gotten up than someone who's never been tested." It was the first time in years anyone had believed in him. Over the next few months, Marcus poured his heart into the project. Every blueprint, every calculation carried not just skill but redemption. Alera worked closely with him, challenging his ideas, admiring his perseverance, and slowly, quietly, building a friendship that neither of them saw coming. He began to smile again. Really smile. His daughter noticed first. "You laugh different now, Daddy," she said one morning, brushing his tie for him. He didn't know how to explain it, but he felt alive again. Then came the day of the presentation. The project was a success, flawless, efficient, and above all, safe. Alera presented it to the board and publicly credited Marcus as the lead designer. The applause that followed wasn't just for the design. It was for the man who refused to stay broken. But the story didn't end there. After the meeting, Marcus found Alera waiting by the rooftop terrace. She stood against the sunset, the city stretching beneath her, and said quietly, "You know, sometimes the wrong table leads us exactly where we belong." He smiled, remembering the laughter, the humiliation, the crushed daisy. "And sometimes," he replied, "a stranger's kindness is all it takes to change a life." Months passed, and their bond deepened beyond work. Marcus never expected romance. He thought that chapter of his life was over, but love has a way of finding those who have stopped looking for it. It wasn't dramatic or rushed. It was slow, genuine, and real. She met Lily, and in one of those moments that stayed forever in his heart, Alera knelt down and said, "Your daddy's the bravest man I've ever met." For Marcus, that meant more than any apology the world could offer. The man who once sat at the wrong table now stood beside the woman who had seen past his scars. Together, they built more than just projects. They built hope, honesty, and a quiet kind of love that healed what life had broken. And every evening, when he picked up Lily from school, she'd run into his arms shouting, "Did you save the world today, Daddy?" He'd laugh, remembering that awful, wonderful night, and say, "Not the world, sweetheart. Just a little piece of it." Rose, if this story touched your heart, please don't scroll away. Like, share, and comment your thoughts below. It helps spread kindness and hope to someone who needs it today. Rose,